It started on a Thursday afternoon, the kind of day that never makes it into stories. I'd been waiting in the small cardiology clinic, flipping through an old magazine I wasn't reading. The hum of the air conditioner, the low beep of monitors behind closed doors, and the smell of antiseptic, all of it settled into a sort of numb quiet I'd grown used to. I was 23, maybe too young to already know what it feels like to live half awake. My chest had been acting strange for weeks, skipped beats, fluttering like something trying to get out. My mother thought it was stress. I thought it was just loneliness with a pulse. Then she walked in, the nurse. Not dramatically, just another person doing her job. She was in her 40s, maybe older, with her hair tied up in a loose knot that somehow made her look tired and graceful at the same time. There was a pin tucked behind her ear, a faint coffee stain on her sleeve, and a silver ring that caught the fluorescent light when she adjusted her clipboard. "Ali Raza," she said, glancing up. Her voice had that calm firmness people use when they've had a long day, but still care enough to sound steady. "Yeah," I said, standing too quickly. My chair scraped against the tile, loud in a room that didn't deserve noise. She smiled, polite but real. "You can come in." I followed her down the short hallway. She didn't say much, and I didn't either. Her shoes made soft sounds against the floor. I watched the back of her as we walked, not in a romantic way, just curious. She carried herself like someone who's learned how to move quietly through other people's pain. Inside the exam room, she motioned for me to sit. The paper on the bed crinkled under me. She clipped the monitor to my finger, wrapped the blood pressure cuff around my arm, and kept glancing at the small screen beside her. "You look nervous," she said eventually. I let out a dry laugh. "Guess I'm just not used to people measuring how fast my heart's failing me." She looked up at that, not with concern, but something softer. "It's not failing you. Just reminding you it's still there." For a second, neither of us said anything. I watched her hand adjust the sensor on my wrist, steady, warm, professional. But too close. Close enough that the space between her sleeve and my skin felt electric. Then she frowned slightly at the screen. "Your heart's racing too fast." I tried to play it off. "That's because you're this close to me." It slipped out before I could stop it. Stupid, impulsive, not meant to be said out loud. I waited for her to roll her eyes or step back, but she didn't. She just looked at me, still holding the sensor in place, and then, slowly, smiled. Not wide, not flirty, just a knowing curve at the corner of her mouth. "Then maybe," she said quietly, "I should step back." But she didn't. The clock ticked. Somewhere in the hallway, a phone rang twice and stopped. When she finally did step away, she scribbled something on her chart and said, "You'll be fine. Just take it easy for a while." I nodded, but my throat felt tight. She opened the door for me, but before I left, she added, "If it happens again, the racing, come back." Recall. That night, I sat in my apartment, phone on the table, untouched coffee gone cold. The word call kept looping in my head like an echo I wasn't sure I'd imagined. I almost texted the clinic. Almost. Instead, I just typed her name into my notes app, Nurse Syra, and stared at it until the letters blurred. Then my phone buzzed. One new message. Unknown number. "Did your heart calm down?" I stared at it for a long time, my pulse doing that fluttering thing again, not from illness this time. Just quiet shock. And something else I didn't have a name for yet. I didn't text back that night. I must have read her message a dozen times, each time half convinced I'd imagined it, that some tired nurse had hit the wrong number after a long shift. But when I went back to the clinic a week later for my follow-up, she looked up from her desk and said, without a word, "So?" And that small smile, the kind people give when they know exactly what you're pretending not to remember. I laughed it off, said, "Guess it calmed down." She tilted her head. "Guess." Her tone had that gentle tease again, somewhere between concern and something quieter. We both knew the monitor wasn't the only thing that had been racing. That day it was raining. The kind of slow, unhurried rain that made people linger in places longer than they should. The clinic was half empty. She offered me tea. "Just while you wait for the doctor." I didn't argue. We sat in the small break room. 2 mugs, steam rising. She wrapped both hands around hers, like she was trying to warm herself from the inside out. "My son's around your age," she said suddenly, not looking at me. "He moved abroad last year, studying computer science. I still text him every morning. Half the time, he doesn't reply." I nodded, unsure what to say. Something in her voice, not regret exactly, just a steady ache, filled the space between us. "That must be hard," I managed. She smiled without humor. "It's harder when you realize they don't need you the way they used to." She sipped her tea. I watched her hands, steady, graceful, small lines along her fingers that only show up after years of working, cleaning, caring. I wondered if her son ever noticed them. Maybe that was what drew me to her. Not the age difference, not the forbidden tilt of it all, but how she carried a kind of calm that made my own restlessness slow down. When she looked up again, her eyes softened. "You remind me of him sometimes," she said. I smiled. "Is that a good thing?" She took a moment before answering. "Some days, yes." The rain outside grew heavier. A low rumble of thunder rolled through the building. Neither of us spoke. It wasn't awkward, just quiet in a way that made me hyper-aware of everything else. The ticking of the wall clock, the smell of her tea, the sound of her breath when she sighed softly. When I finally stood to leave, I thanked her. She reached for my cup to put it in the sink, and her fingers brushed mine. A tiny, meaningless touch. But it stopped me. She didn't move her hand right away. Just looked at me for a fraction too long, eyes searching mine as if trying to decide which line not to cross. Then she smiled, the smallest, most tired smile I've ever seen, and said, "Take care, Ollie. Try not to make me worry again." I nodded, my voice caught somewhere behind my ribs. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the moment. Not the words, just the way she said me worry. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time I saw her, it wasn't at the clinic. It was at the grocery store, near the shelf with tea bags and instant soups. She was in plain clothes this time, hair loose, sleeves rolled up. She didn't see me at first. I almost walked past her, pretending to check a price label, but she turned suddenly, a box in her hand. "Oh," she said, blinking. "You again." I smiled. Still alive, somehow. She laughed quietly, that same half-exhale sound I'd memorized from the clinic. Then something in her expression shifted, like she'd realized this wasn't supposed to happen outside those sterile walls. "You look different without your uniform," I said, instantly regretting how it sounded. She looked down, adjusting her bracelet. "So do you. Less pale." We both stood there, surrounded by quiet grocery store noises, a child whining somewhere, the buzz of refrigerator lights. She was holding chamomile tea. I pointed. "That for you." "For my mother," she said. "She can't sleep much anymore." She didn't add anything else, and I didn't ask. I could feel her walls rising again, slow, invisible, practiced. We ended up at the checkout together somehow. Her cart was small. I offered to carry her bags. She hesitated, then nodded once, as if agreeing to something she shouldn't. Outside, the evening light had gone soft and gray. The rain had come again, that fine misty kind that clings to your skin. We walked side by side under the awning until the car park emptied. "Do you live nearby?" I asked. She nodded, glancing toward the street. "Just behind the pharmacy." "Can I started, then stopped. "Never mind." Her eyes flicked toward me. "You were going to say something." "Just, if it's heavy, I could help carry it." She smiled faintly. "It's not heavy. You don't have to make excuses." Something about the way she said that made me look at her longer than I should have. She noticed, looked away quickly. A week passed. No text this time. I told myself it was fine, that I'd imagined whatever this was. But I started noticing small things. Walking past the clinic on my way to nowhere, checking my phone for no reason, replaying our rain-soaked walk. When I finally went back for a last checkup, she wasn't at the front desk. A different nurse greeted me. I almost left. But then I heard her voice from the hallway. Low, steady, familiar. She looked surprised when she saw me waiting. I thought you were done. I am, I said. Mostly. For a second, something flickered behind her eyes. Curiosity, maybe worry. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You shouldn't be here. Why not? Because, she started, then stopped. Looked around. Because people notice things. Someone walked by, and she stepped back fast, putting a file between us like a shield. The air felt suddenly heavy. Right, I said softly. People notice. She looked down, then away. Her hand brushed the counter, a small tremor in her fingers. You should go, Ollie. I nodded, but I didn't move. For a moment, one impossible, suspended heartbeat. Her gaze found mine again. Something unspoken passed between us, too fragile to name. Then her breath caught, just slightly, and she turned away. If I'd reached out just then, maybe everything would have changed. But I didn't. Neither did she. Only the sound of her pen clicking again and again filled the silence between us, the rhythm of all the words we never said. It was late when she called. Her voice was quiet, hesitant. You're awake. I sat up in bed, heart already beating too fast. Yeah, I shouldn't be calling, she said. I saw your name on the schedule today. I thought maybe you were coming in again. I wasn't, I said. But I thought about it. A soft exhale on her end. The kind that sounds half like a sigh, half like a decision not yet made. Then, can we talk? Just outside. Not at the clinic. We met at the park near the hospital. It was almost empty, just the hum of street lights and the soft scrape of leaves on pavement. She was sitting on a bench, her coat buttoned up to her neck, fingers tucked into her sleeves. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. You look tired, I said finally. She smiled faintly. I always look tired. I sat beside her, leaving a small, polite distance between us. She kept her eyes on the pond, where the water caught pieces of light from the lamps. I almost transferred clinics last week, she said. The words hit harder than I expected. Why? She shrugged. Too close to home. Too many distractions. I knew what she meant. Or who? Something in my chest sank, though I tried to sound casual. Distractions aren't always bad. Sometimes they're dangerous, she said. Her tone wasn't angry, just tired, worn out from resisting something that wouldn't go away. The silence stretched. She rubbed her thumb against her ring, not looking at me. I thought you were married, I said quietly. Divorced, she said. 7 years now. He lives in Karachi. We don't talk. I wanted to say I'm sorry, but the words felt wrong. So I just nodded. I wasn't supposed to feel this, she went on. Not again. Not like this. You remind me of a part of myself I thought I'd grown out of. Which part? I asked, barely above a whisper. She turned her head then, really looking at me for the first time that night. The one that still believes people might choose me. The air between us stilled. My throat felt tight, useless. I didn't know what to do with my hands, so I tucked them into my jacket pockets, just to stop them from reaching out. I could see the tremor in her breathing, the small flicker of fear, not of me, but of herself. I shouldn't have called, she said, voice breaking just slightly. You're too young. You don't understand what this could do to me. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I understood more than she thought. But something in her face stopped me. The quiet plea there, the exhaustion, the way her eyes shone like she was asking me not to save her. We sat there, the sound of the wind carrying small bits of our silence. I turned to her and said softly, Then why did you call? She didn't answer right away, just closed her eyes, as if bracing for something inevitable. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely there. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. My hand moved. Instinct, reflex, halfway between us before I caught it. She saw it. Didn't flinch. Didn't move closer either. For one long, suspended moment, the world felt balanced on the edge of something we both knew we couldn't afford. Then she whispered, almost to herself, Tell me this isn't what I think it is. I didn't. And that silence was the closest either of us came to answering. She stopped replying. No warning. No slow fade. Just silence. 1 week became 2. I tried not to count the days, But each morning I found myself opening my messages before I was even fully awake. The same chat, the same unread space. I told myself she was busy, or tired, or maybe she'd realized how it looked. A nurse calling a patient after hours, walking in parks, sitting too close on a cold bench. Maybe someone had noticed. Maybe she was just protecting herself. Still, it felt like something unfinished had been quietly erased. I went back to the clinic once, pretending I needed my report. The receptionist told me Nurse Syra was transferred, just like she'd said she might. Another district, temporary placement, probably back in a few months. I nodded like it didn't matter, like I hadn't memorized the way she said my name. When I walked outside, the sky was that heavy kind of gray that always comes before rain. I stood under the awning again, like before, waiting for something that wasn't coming. That night, I drafted a message. Deleted it. Wrote it again. Deleted it again. You don't owe me an explanation, but I hope you're okay. The words sat there, cursor blinking. Then I locked the screen and turned the phone face down. Days blurred. Work, sleep, coffee, repeat. I caught myself noticing people who looked vaguely like her. The same knot of hair, the same careful walk. Every time, it wasn't her. Every time, I felt something collapse inside my chest and rebuild itself, smaller. Then one afternoon, I ran into her son. At a cafe near the university. He was laughing with a group of friends. Tall, confident, the same tilt of the head she had. I recognized him from a picture on her phone, once shown by accident when she scrolled too far. For a moment, I just watched him, realizing how close I'd come to crossing a line neither of us could unmake. He noticed me eventually, nodded politely, not recognizing my face. Just another stranger in line. And somehow that felt right. That he didn't know. That she'd kept that world separate. That night, I finally opened the message again. My fingers hovered. I wanted to ask if she'd found peace. If the transfer helped. If she still thought of me when rain started or when tea went cold. But the truth was simpler. I just wanted to hear her voice again, even if it said nothing. But I didn't send it. Because maybe this was how it was supposed to end. Not with closure, but with quiet restraint. With two people who once almost ruined themselves for something that never quite happened. I placed the phone beside me, screen dimming, unread message glowing like a heartbeat that refused to die down. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was 3 months later when I saw her again. Not at the clinic. Not in the park. At a small roadside pharmacy on the edge of town. One of those places that still smelled faintly of soap and rain. I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was shorter now, and she looked lighter somehow. Or maybe I was the one who'd changed, carrying around too much silence to notice hers. She turned at the sound of the door and froze. A second later, she smiled, cautious, genuine, like someone greeting a ghost they'd half hoped not to see again. Ollie. Just my name. That was enough to bring back everything I'd tried to file away under what-ifs. I stepped closer, unsure what to do with my hands. Didn't think I'd see you here. I transferred back last week, she said. Just part-time. She hesitated, then added. I wasn't sure if I should tell you. I almost laughed. You didn't have to. I know. The silence after that wasn't heavy this time. It felt careful, like we were both measuring how much of the past could safely fit into the present. The pharmacist called out her name for a prescription. She thanked him, then turned back to me. Do you have time for tea? She asked. I nodded before I could think about what that meant. We sat at a nearby stall, 2 chipped cups between us, the smell of cardamom thick in the air. She wrapped her hands around the cup the same way she had that day at the clinic. I thought about calling, she said. I thought about texting, I replied. She smiled faintly. We're consistent, at least. For a while, we just watched people passing, the street vendor packing up, the faint hum of evening traffic. Everything looked ordinary, which made what she said next feel even more real. I left because I was scared, she said. Not of you. Of what I'd start needing again. I didn't look at her. Just traced the rim of my cup. You didn't owe me anything. I know, she said. But it still hurt. Something about the honesty of it made my chest tighten. Not because it was romantic, because it was true. I kept wondering, I said quietly, if it meant anything, or if I just imagined it. She looked at me then, really looked. You didn't imagine it. I nodded slowly. It wasn't relief I felt, just a strange calm, like a fever finally breaking. She reached across the table then, fingers brushing mine. Not holding, just there. Some things don't need to end, she said softly. They just need to rest. I met her gaze, steady now. And us. Her thumb grazed my hand once, light as breath. We're resting. I smiled, small, tired but real. And she smiled back, the kind that didn't ask for anything more. We sat there until the tea went cold. No promises. No next time. Just two people who'd finally stopped running from what they already knew. It's been a year now. The clinic moved to a new building, brighter walls, softer lighting. I go there sometimes, not as a patient anymore, just to drop off supplies from the pharmacy where I work part-time. Funny how things circle back. She's still there. Still the same careful way of moving through rooms. Still that calm voice that makes even the sickest people breathe easier. But now, when she sees me walk in with the delivery box, she lets the smallest smile slip through before turning professional again. Some people notice. Most don't. And that's enough. Sometimes, during her lunch break, we sit on the same bench near the park. The one where we almost ruined everything once. She brings tea in a small thermos, still with too much cardamom. I bring black coffee that's always gone cold by the time I arrive. We don't talk about the past much. It's not denial, it's understanding. The kind that doesn't need retelling. She'll mention her son now and then, how he's adjusting abroad, how they laugh on video calls. I'll talk about work, my landlord's cat, nothing that matters and somehow everything that does. Sometimes we just sit there, letting silence do the talking. One afternoon, I reached into the bag and handed her something small, a box of chamomile tea. She raised an eyebrow. For me? For your mother, I said. You mentioned she can't sleep much. Her face softened. You remembered that? I remember everything, I said quietly. She didn't reply, but she poured us both tea and handed me her cup first, like it was an apology she didn't know how to say. The rain started not long after, soft, unhurried, just like that first day. We didn't move. She opened her umbrella halfway, enough to cover the space between us. My shoulder got wet anyway. She noticed, smiled, and shifted it a little closer. No confession, no kiss. Just that, the quiet correction of distance. Now, every Thursday at 8:47 a.m., I walk past the clinic window on my way to work. It's become routine, but not ritual. Sometimes she's there, sometimes not. When she is, she waves. When she isn't, I still glance up, just in case. I've learned that love doesn't always need an arrival. Sometimes it just needs a place to rest. We didn't end up together in the way stories usually mean it. We ended up here, steady, real, untangled. And that's enough. When we part, she always says the same thing now. Take care, Ollie. Don't make me worry again. And I always smile, because we both know what she really means. That my heart still races sometimes. And that it's not something either of us needs to fix anymore. Dove, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Ones about second chances, unspoken feelings, or the kind that never quite fade?